Hi guys, we're back and we're going to learn some more about our science safety tools and how we use those when we're having science class. So today we're going to go back over the anchor chart because you're going to need to refresh your memory, wake up your schema, and figure out something to share for your assignment. All right, so we're going to need you to think and listen hard so that you can be able to do your assignment, okay? So let's go back over the anchor chart and the pictures that we have shown on here. Now, the first thing we need to remember to think about is that a lot of these pictures are ways that we measure things, okay? There was, remember, several different ways that we measure things. So some things are tools that we use in science, and then some of the things on our board were used for science safety. So first we're going to talk about the things that we can use for measuring and what types of things we would measure with those objects. Okay, so let's look at the measurement ones. Well, the first one we have that has the word measure in its name actually is the tape measure. Remember, that is something that we would use if we were measuring something that's a great big long length, right? A large object, okay? Because, you know, a ruler is only so big. So if you were measuring the floor in the classroom or the wall in the classroom, you wouldn't want to use a small ruler. That would take a long time to measure it. But if I used a tape measure, the tape measure could measure how much carpet I need in my room, how much paint I need for the wall, because we could measure the wall. If we're trying to figure out if a big couch would fit in a room, we would use that tape measure to measure the space to see if the couch would fit. Building a house, you would typically use a tape measure. So in life, the way you would use a tape measure are for some of those things. Think about what you would use a tape measure for in life, or a job that you might have where you would use a tape measure. Not necessarily a ruler, but something that you would need a long tape measure to measure, okay? So that is the first thing we use when we're talking about measurement, okay? The next thing is a thermometer. Now, a thermometer is typically a form of measuring. It's measuring how hot or how cold something is. Or, you know, if it's in between, it might be cool, right? So cool or warm, those are typically middle of the road type words. But it measures how hot and how cold it is. So a thermometer is another form of measurement, and it's measuring the air and the temperature. Okay. Then we have this beaker, and remember, a lot of people said it's a glass, it's a bowl, it's a pitcher. It's a beaker. And remember, we talked about, well, my chart here's going. We talked about the little knot lines all the way up the side. Well, that is so you could measure what a liquid is, how much of a liquid there is. Now, remember, we talked about a liquid being something that could flow and take the shape of its container. But if I poured it out, it would just go everywhere. If I put it in a square dish, it would take the shape of the square dish. It's kind of like when you're taking and making popsicles, and the liquid forms into the shape of the container you put it in, right? So that's measuring liquid. Okay, so we have the thermometer, which measures temperature. We have the beaker that measures liquid. And we have the tape measure that measures the size of an object. Okay? We also have the scale. Remember? Heavy and light. Okay? So that's measuring weight. Remember, we gave the example of the skateboard and the bicycle. Which one was heavier? Which one was lighter? When I pick it up, it's like going to the gym and I'm using weights, right? So I need to know, if I'm a little person, I should probably start out with small weights. If I'm a big person, probably should start out with bigger weights, right? Or maybe we start out small and then keep going bigger and bigger and bigger as our arms get stronger. Okay, so with that in life, you would measure. You can measure going to the gym and doing your weights, or you could measure if I've got a table and it only holds so much weight, I don't want to put a whole bunch of bricks on it and the legs break off, right? So you've got to know sometimes the weight of something. I have little stools in my room, in my classroom, and they have a weight limit of 120 pounds. So a larger adult, it would not be smart for them to sit on my stool. The stool would break. So you would need to know that, and you can use a scale like this to know weights, light and heavy, back and forth. Okay, and the other one that is a measurement tool is the stopwatch, and that measures your speed. If you're a runner, if you're a sprinter, cross country, it wants to know how fast you go or how slow you go. The faster the students or the faster the participant, then that tells you, oh, he's really fast. My time is not that fast, so I need to work if I want to win this race. So, you know, it's a lot of times where they use these in athletics, in sports. That's a lot of times when you use the stopwatch. For speed, it's measuring the speed. All right, so the other two things, actually three things, that we need to talk about are a hand lens. Remember, that helps us when we are looking at something small and we need to make that see that larger, see the details, see it bigger and more, sometimes lifelike, right? So we might see a little piece of particle or sand or dirt. We want to see what it looks like, or we want to just observe something and see it closer up. We would use a magnifying glass or a hand lens. Remember I said magnifying glass / hand lens because magnify is a word that means to see bigger, make it larger. Not actually physically making it larger. I'm not going to take small little sand and make it grow, but I can see it become larger. I can see the details. It magnifies it. Okay? Then we have the magnet. And remember we talked about it can attract or it can repel. Attract, it can repel, right? That's what a magnet does. And it's fun to see what it attracts to and what it repels to. And we go later on in the year, we're going to learn a lot about magnets. Then we have the goggles. This is really for protection, right? We talked about how when we're working with chemicals or something that we don't want to get in our eyes, it's good to wear goggles. Or if we're just working with our hands, we forget, we scratch our eye or we rub it, we don't want those chemicals or what we're working with sometimes to get into our face. If we're doing stuff with sand, we might want to put goggles on, right? Because you don't want to get those sand pieces in your eye. So goggles sometimes are used in science to help us be protected, right? So that we don't hurt or damage our eyes. So those are the objects that we are talking about, the science tools, actually. They're not toys, they're tools. And they're not necessarily objects, they're actually tools. And what you are going to do today is you are going, and I put this on the instructions, on the assignment, you are going to record me, I don't care what two of these you pick, I don't care what two tools you pick, you have 8 different ones, but I want you to pick at least 2. You can do more, but I want you to pick at least 2, and I want you to talk about them. I want you to tell me what they are used for, how they might either protect us, what they measure. I want you to describe them and tell me how you would use them and what you would use them for in real life, okay? So let's say I pick the stopwatch. The stopwatch, you know, is used to talk about speed, how fast or slow something goes. And it's oftentimes used for runners or people that play sports. That is what I would want you to say about that, okay? You pick one, you pick two, and you tell me what they are, what they're used for, and how you would use them in life, and how would you use them in the world. I gave you examples for all of these. It would be great if you could come up with some on your own, but if you just say what I've said in the video, that's fine. Then I know you've at least listened. But I would like to see if you could come out with some out of the box or some ways that these things could be used in the real life, in real world, with real people and real jobs. Because let's face it, not everybody's going to be scientists, but a lot of these things are used every day by lots of different people. So have a good day. Thanks for joining me for our science lesson, and I will see you later.